story short, I write stories. And the title of this story is One Stubborn Girl. Where am I coming from? I'm coming from a space where giving up was not an option. Of all the stories I've written, I wrote plays in university. I wrote funny little stories for my son when he was little about all his antics. And I have 2 published children's books and about 20 more on the way. And this was the hardest story to write. I didn't figure anybody needed to hear my story or would want to hear it, but, you know, here go, let's give it a go. When I was younger, my most stark memory of a child was when life as I knew it ended at 6, and my parents decided that they were going to have a divorce. Quite a bitter one. But I think the most traumatic thing for me was losing that relationship with my dad. So this was my first attempt at being stubborn and putting up a good fight. So we stuck it out, they separated, life fell apart, and we tried to hold it together and it just didn't happen. And the distance grew. And to me, I just needed to keep going and keep fighting, and it just wasn't working. The distance continued. And so I figured, well, this might be the first fight that has to come to an end. And so I paused, and I thought it had ended, but we'll see. We went on, moved in with my grandparents, life was great, that was stable. And then when I was older and moved back in with my mom, the chaos continued, and we were living with an abusive uncle who didn't affect us in any way, but watching mom going through this and knowing that she had a hard time stepping out of it, I figured I needed to immerse myself in some space where I could live my dreams, hold on to them, figure out how to make them happen. And I did that through dancing and my faith, and I joined the company Dance Theatre, and that was my second challenge, right? Who is this young girl coming into this company? And Tony Wilson would challenge me, and he'd give me these roles, and I'd step into the studio and he'd say, man, you look like a Betty Mill baby. What is that? Well, don't tell me that I'm not mashing ants, because I'm going to step up. And step up I did. And I think my favorite role that he gave me was opening night for a show called Breaking the Mirror. And I said, all right, let's keep going. I remember early in my teaching career deciding, okay, I'm gonna go to Columbia to study. And my friend said, no, they're not going to accept you. So all right, let's see how this goes. And accept me they did. And with very little savings, but a lot of very supportive friends and some scholarships, I made it to New York City and lived my dream for the first year and a half, and then discovered that I was going to be a mom. And I said, wow, all right, let's do this. How does this work? Single mom, but I need to finish my studies, but I'm going to be a mom. And a full-time mom. So I moved closer to home, changed courses, and this little person, who is now my favorite person in the world, who I believe has taught me more than I've taught him, came into the world, and 20 years later he's flourishing and doing well. And that was a challenge to me that was worth fighting. Doing it right, doing it well, and making sure that he came out as a productive and constructive citizen and a good person. And then, of course, at that stage, my first fight for my first love came back around. And so my dad had another child in his second marriage, and lo and behold, she ended up in the school that I was teaching at, and I said, there you go, going to fight again. And so, show up, we talk every day when we're walking into school, I'd show up at church on a Sunday, we'd sit together, we'd talk some more, and we reconciled and we reconnected, which was great, because when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer years later, we could say that all was good. So that was a fight that was worth prolonging and worth holding on for, you know, not giving up on someone who's important and special. And then, of course, walking through, Ethan is doing well, and I realized, hold on, I'm going to be an empty nest in about 3 years. Need to start figuring this out. And so I resurrected a book that I had written when he was about 9 as part of a program that I was studying. I had picked up myself and run off to the University of Toronto, cashed in my pension, pulled all my savings. I said, boy, if I'm going to do this education thing, I'm going to do it right. So I'm going to go and see what it looks like when you have a first-class educational system. look, see what it looks like, come back with my ideas, and then of course put myself in a better position to support my son so that he could come into his own in his own time. So I go and I'm like, wow, 9 months without this kid, how is this going to work? And we Skyped every day, and it was a fight, but it was worth it. And I remember one evening with 2 big bags of groceries crossing a very windy highway in -20-degree weather, thinking, shoot, boy, if you really want good, your nose have to run, eh? And the nose started to run, and I was like, God, don't you have a sense of humor? Because I'm not laughing right now. But as I said, it worked out, and it opened amazing opportunities for us when I came home. So it was worth it. It was worth that 9 months and digging in and showing him that if you really want good things, you do have to push through and you do have to fight. And then, long story short, when he was a little older and didn't really require as much of my physical time, I resurrected my book 10 years later that I had started in Toronto when he was 9, 10-ish. And after being ghosted by about 3 different illustrators, his friend said, you know, I'll do those pictures for you, Auntie Lisa. Let's get this done. And 10 years later, my book, Love Has Wrinkles, was born, which was a tribute to my grandmother. And again, if I had known it would take 10 years, would I have written it? I don't know. But it actually turned out to be much better than I thought. And the timing was perfect, as with all things. So I'm coming from a space where giving up is not an option. I stand in my empty nester space knowing that I have many more fights that I'm going to have to wage, but I'm up for it because I will not back down. And I look forward to more books, more wonderful opportunities and surprises that the good Lord has for me, and just keep going, don't give up. Thank you for having me.